Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is WindofChange1997 coming at you with a very special new segment. This is going to be a Creepypasta reading, which I am going to have my first submission in. And I am also going to be asking for subscribers, especially new ones, to submit me stories to read, either of your experiences or stories that you've created, to be able to read on my channel. This is going to be a brand new segment, and I've really put a lot of hard work into these videos. I hope you enjoy them, because I make the instrumental music for them. I produce all of it, mix everything. On top of the fact, I create the videos themselves. I also, of course, write some of these stories, do the voice acting, and I sometimes put days upon weeks into working on these. And I really appreciate all of my current subscribers, all of you that have been rocking with me for the longest. I have a lot of love for you. So without further ado, let's get into my story about our friend Dante. This is a work of fiction and fiction only. But be prepared. The night I had to kill a killer. First, allow me to say I am an extremely passive individual. But I come from a military, prison guard, and police family where I have received proper training on the safety, handling, and use of firearms, melee weapons, and hand-to-hand combat, though I myself cannot serve due to several reasons that I'll leave unknown. The area I live in is one of the top 5 worst cities in the United States, but for my own sake, I'll keep the name of which state anonymous. My name is Dante, and this is one of many stories of my encounters with evil as I attempt to survive in the hell I was born into. I believe whatever higher power there may be put me in this war zone so that from this fire I will make a great change in the world for good, as I can see the world for what it is at its lowest. When you come from the bottom, the only place to go in life is up, unless you let this get to you and you feel the need to end it. I can't judge. I've been at the tip of the blade and the barrel of many firearms just for walking in an area I was born in. Excuse me. Sometimes when I recant these stories, I can't help but feel, I don't know how to describe it, but shall we move on? As I was saying, when you come from the bottom, the only place to go in life is up, unless you let it get to you. You feel the need to end it. I can't judge. I've been at the tip of the blade and the barrel of, as I said, a whole lot of guns, just for walking in an area I was born in, whether it's in the daytime or especially under the cover of darkness. I'm a very large man at 6 feet 6 inches, 280 pounds, but don't let it scare you. Any trained individual knows size has absolutely nothing to do with a person's skill set, alongside their personal experiences that help polish these skills to make them second nature. This is dog eat dog, and I am the voice of the ones who feel they are voiceless in this world. I don't accept bullies who choose to harass those who feel they have no chance but to comply. I consider myself one of the many sheepdogs of my bloodline, but in my own unique way, we protect the flock and never ask for a thank you, because that defeats the purpose of doing the deed. You're throwing it in someone's face. Enough about me, though. Winter of 2018. In my urban environment, it's tough for everyone. The city never takes care of the fucking roads, so ice and snow make it hard to get out of the streets that I live on. The hills can sometimes be impossible to climb with a vehicle just to access the main roads. I choose to walk a lot in these times because I've got a lot of financial opportunities in this area. I have a lot of different self-made businesses that I own, from merchandise I sell to even little menial jobs like lawn care or, in this season, snow shoveling. Therefore, I always retain all of my own funds without a middleman. Doing so, I have to travel a lot, but with what I've built, I can do business on foot with a whole lot of my clients and customers in the area around me. One of my customers for a t-shirt lives not too far of a walk from me and is actually a good friend of mine from high school years ago. I prepared his t-shirt from the box I had made of 100 of them and got plastic wrap to cover it so it wouldn't be damaged if my backpack fell. Remember, this is the ghetto, so you have to improvise when you're starting with nothing and trying to build something. After I neatly folded the t-shirt and placed it into my backpack, I began to prepare for my small journey, lacing my steel-toed boots to prepare for the harsh weather conditions ahead. Once I was fully clothed, I began my usual ritual of packing my defensive tools and gear that I wear in case of an emergency. A situation can arise at any time and one must be vigilant, aware, calm, composed at all times, yet swift and agile. Because in the jungle, people want to have a pissing contest over soil that belongs to the state just because someone made them mad that day, and you happen to glance over to the side to look both ways before crossing the roads toward your final destination. I put on my level 3 body armor, zipped it up, and adjusted the Velcro straps and tightened them down just to make sure they were secure. Punched the metal plate to make sure I was ready. It's part of my ritual. It's weird, I know. Sort of preps the mind to what may occur. If you're ever shot and want to live, you must not entertain the thought of dying. You must be 110% positive in your mind that fate is wrong and that it isn't your time to leave this earth. This only pertains to wounds that are not in vital areas such as the head, heart, lungs, a vital artery, so on and so forth. Next, I grab my all-black switchblade with the custom finger grooves in the handle. It is sick. And the window-breaking tool on the bottom of it, which in dire circumstances also happens to work well against an attacker by hitting them with the spiked end. Once again, in dire circumstances. It's normally used to bust out car windows in an emergency like you being trapped in a car that goes into a body of water, the door is jammed, and you need to break the glass to survive. So I put this in my left Carhartt pocket because it's smaller. From a jab, it's a very quick tool to stop an attack. After my first knife, I proceed to put on my second blade. It's a little bigger, but it's a spring assist, meaning it doesn't have a push button. But when it's folded out, a spring helps force the blade into the fully extended and locked position. It's a beautiful military woodland grease paint style camouflage with a serrated bottom half. I put this in my right coat pocket for power attacks. On my right wrist, I clamp on my black paracord bracelet, which inside conceals a piece of steel razor wire, which 2 handles big enough for fingers to fit through happen to be. With this, you can choose to surrender to an enemy who outguns you, and you're captured or taken by surprise. It looks harmless, but steel razor wire can be used to break out of metal cuffs, zip ties, and other forms of restraints. In the event you happen to be taken by surprise and disarmed, this tool is very useful. You hope for the best, but you always plan for the worst and the unexpected. Last, I pack a 9mm semi-automatic double action, all black with an 18+1 mag configuration and 2 extra magazines. I appendix carry because it's naturally where my arms are in the resting position when I'm standing, And in a conversation, I can use my hands as cover to hide it nonchalantly, so attention is not drawn to the weapon and someone doesn't feel threatened by it, while allowing me to have an advantage in a bad situation because I can utilize it as part of my posture when confronted by the average aggressor. A wiser man would tell you to reach for the sky for a reason. Once I'm ready to finally begin my walk, I grab my cell phone, house keys, my pack of roll-your-own cigarettes with one pre-rolled for the walk, and put the raggedy warm backpack with only one single working strap on my back. I had this bag for all my high school years, and it finally wore out to the point of only one strap breaking completely 4 years after that. 8 years for a $30 backpack, and I can still use it with one strap missing? I'd say that's a good deal, personally. I open the door to the sun just beginning to set and exit, checking my surroundings as I walk out. I've had to confront crackheads in my backyard before just because they came to my door with a tire trying to sell it to me and I wouldn't take it. So they decided to shop my backyard for turning down their 5-finger discount deal of a lifetime. Things like this will make you aware of your entire 360-degree surroundings. So, I begin to trek down my driveway, and I make a right up the road of my ducked-off street. It's a double no outlet, so as we would say here, I live in the cut. Halfway up the street, I walk through the middle of two houses, which is a clearing going to the next street over from mine. It's a route I used probably the 10 plus years I've lived here. Even when I went to middle school, I know it very well. Once at the top of the hill, I continued down the road and made a right onto the street behind the one I live on. On this road, I've had wild dogs confront me and even people in the past, but nothing quite like what I'd find out later that evening. As the street lights came on, I continued down the long stretch of road on foot, casually peeping my peripheral view to make sure no cars or incoming people were approaching, checking behind me every 4 to 5 steps. I walk in the road until traffic comes, though, because the narrow, tucked-away street allows someone to very easily pop out and attack you with little to no effort unless you're prepared. For the sake of brevity, I'll fast forward from this point. My friend buys his t-shirt, and we hang out together to catch up, as it's been a few months since we had last gotten to see each other, despite living so close. This is adult life. I thanked him as I stepped out onto the front porch of the duplex and began my journey back. With it being fully submerged in darkness now and the wind piercing through my thick jacket, chilling my bones, I put my boots to the snow and marched toward another duplex's backyard, which is next to a creek that's all over my neighborhood and stretches to the bottom of my street that I use as a cut through. I stay away from the homes and any personal belongings of said people. I make my leave quick, but not running, because if confronted, I already know I'm in the wrong for using a cut-through on someone else's property. If my intentions are good, then why fight the owner? I'd gladly walk all the way back if I had to, just to take the long route to the main roads, and looking back, I wish I would have that evening. It would have prevented one of the many visuals I never wanted to experience that gave me nightmares in my sleep, because my mind waits till I'm vulnerable and decides to remind me that of which deeply scars you as a person, especially with mental trauma as I've experienced it, including having been shot at in the past in an attempted drive-by in 2009, just for walking back home from a gas station up the road just shy of midnight. You never know if those bullets were for a gang initiation or because someone didn't like you for any given reason and wanted you off this planet for good. A couple more quick turns on that road, and I'm back on the road where the dogs and people have confronted me. This is a side street, so once again, no roads are sanded, ice melted, etc. I'm having to walk very carefully with each step in the middle to avoid slipping, and a man of my stature normally has to walk slower because our center of gravity is higher than average, making it easier to fall from slipping. This street is extremely dark, but thankfully I'm blessed with 20/10 vision and can see very well at night. As I approach the section of road that leads to the creek, there's a small patch of woods on the left-hand side, and an apartment complex on the right-hand side. Two lights were on in the windows of the top floor of the apartment, but the shades were closed, so I didn't pay it much mind. However, as I approached the woods, I could hear footsteps through the cold, dead silence of winter. My father used to take me out of the city when I was a little kid. We would go hunting, so I'm very well acquainted with hearing quadruped footsteps and listening for those little noises, because in the woods, there's no light next to the moon. You're out there before daybreak trying to bag a deer once the sun comes up. You gotta have a very keen sense of hearing, because coyotes and other animals can attack you out of nowhere, so you gotta be on your toes. I apply the same logic to listening to the woods when possibly being followed by a person. I could tell this wasn't a deer or a four-legged creature of any type that I recognize. This was a biped. These were human footsteps. I began to test the footsteps by stopping at random points in my step. This is a trick I learned from my training. A smart stalker with skill will never stop whenever you stop. I'll say it again. A smart stalker with skill will stop whenever you stop. Therefore, you must randomize the stop so as to not make a pattern with it where the stalker can predict your every move. On 2 separate occasions, I could hear a single footstep after I stopped, and my adrenaline kicked in, making my focus and senses enhanced. I knew at this point a person was in those woods, roughly 30 yards into the darkness, by the report of those steps echoing. At this time, I switched from walking dead center of the road to slightly right, with my attention on the right side as well. You never know if this person has help, therefore you gotta keep both eyes peeled for either side. All you know is the sound you currently hear is on your left, and you have no visual of the suspect. As I said, I remain calm in this type of situation. You cannot show fear, because those with intent to harm you prey on fear itself, even if they can only see it in your eyes. They normally aren't used to running into someone who acknowledges these noises with a couple head turns, one deep breath through the nostrils, out the mouth on the exhale, and the rolling of the shoulders and neck to loosen the muscles for the upcoming confrontation. I maintain an emotionless face with a 1,000-yard stare as each step gets closer and closer to what's going to come. And by this time, small beads of sweat were running from my hair into my hat, because I was walking, and though peering into the pitch black woods, I couldn't see this individual, only hear that I was being followed at this point by the leaves and sticks crunching beneath them. With each distant step, I began to hear the sound slowly move closer and closer to the tree line. I had 50 yards to go before I was away from those woods and up the street enough to have houses on both sides again. Once the footsteps were just shy of the tree line, I began to see a silhouette form in the darkness. It was a man just around 5'8", 5'9", broad-shouldered, in a brown coat similar to mine with the hood up. He was wearing blue jeans and had work boots on. And in his hand, the motherfucker had a fixed blade knife. It looked just like something out of a kitchen knife set. I don't know. It's not a chef's knife, but it's a little skinnier, like a steak knife with fully serration. Excuse me. Sometimes when I really get into stories like this, it makes me talk fast because I go to attempt to remember everything all at once, and it messes with my mind in a way I cannot describe. This is post-traumatic stress disorder, but I will stay on track because I know you want to hear this. The blade was covered in serration. I turned and I started to walk backwards, facing him, checking my immediate surroundings for others, and he began to walk out of the tree line and toward the road. He had this ghoulish smile on his face. His eyes attempted to peer through mine, but he didn't have any luck. Like a bolt of lightning crashing down to Mother Earth, I drew my semi with a double-handed grip and put the front post slightly below the middle of his eyes. And he froze in his step, with the smile still on his face, as though he was playing a game with me. With my right thumb, I thumbed back the hammer and calmly ordered the man to drop the knife. He was staring directly down my barrel, but he didn't budge. I told him again, drop the knife. His fist clenched the blade. His smile widened. We weren't but 15 yards away at this point. I already gave the order twice, and I knew he heard me for sure that second time. I waited patiently and silently as I watched the light bulbs going off in his head while he formed his plan. I was standing in place for what had to be an honest 30 seconds as he considered his options silently. He was clutching that blade like he wanted to fucking strangle it. Finally, the bells of the gods rang, and they decided that at this time, this individual and I were gonna have to fight to the death. He moved his right leg back slightly, as though he was gonna push it off to run at me. I tightened my grip to ensure a single shot would miss the intended target. We don't have a stand your ground law here, therefore, you gotta truly wait until you're attacked to kill your attacker. You could cut the fucking tension with a brick oven pizza paddle. No sooner than I blink, he charges like a bull trying to gore a matador so it doesn't get stabbed by swords. As the distance closes between us, he gets roughly 7 yards from me. And I breathe to swiftly squeeze the trigger. One single crack of a 9mm report rings out. I watch him turn from a sprint to a slide as the gravel below him, now roughly 5 yards, begins to pool very quickly with a massive amount of blood. With my weapon still pointed at my attacker, I take an honest 5 seconds to scan that body. I hit him right where I intended, but I needed to make sure he was dead. As I approach the body, I booted the knife away into the woods with a single kick, and stepping away from the hand immediately. It's to avoid being grabbed. As the blood formed a small river on the edge of the street, trickling in between the cold snow surrounding it, there was fucking smoke pouring from the entry wound that I could see from standing over the body, and the visible eye had been caved partially into the socket from the pressure of the round. It was a goddamn stomach-churning sight to behold, but I knew I was alive, and that's all that mattered. I made sure to clear my surroundings and then immediately put my finger back outside the trigger guard, thumbed my safety to the up position, locking the trigger, and I stared for a couple more seconds, taking in what just happened. Grabbed my phone and dialed the police. I holstered my weapon, pulled out my pack of roll-your-own cigarettes, and proceeded to roll a thumb-sized cancer stick to cope with what I just had to do. I lit my smoke, and halfway into it, the police could be heard approaching the street, so I took one last big drag and tossed it. I told the operator they would find me in the road with the weapons I had on the ground away from me. I would be on my knees with my hands above my head. This is to ensure that I'm not a threat to the cops that arrived on scene. I did just as I had told them I was going to, knowing they were almost there. I unholstered my weapon, took the magazine out, I laid it on the ground. Then I cleared the round from the chamber and locked the slide back to show that the chamber was empty and set the pistol down. I then took out my blades, and I set them next to the gun. I took off my paracord bracelet as well. I walked roughly 10 yards away from the weapons, got down on my knees, put my hands above my head just in time to see their lights hit the houses as they turned onto the street. Once again, for the sake of brevity, I'll fast forward from this point. So, thankfully, my weapons were cleared and eventually given back to me. I had to pick them up from the precinct after they had been tested, and it was actually ruled as justifiable homicide. But I was dropped of any possible charges. Thank God. I am just thankful I made it away with my life that day. Here I am now, reflecting back on what happened, and to this day, I still can't walk anywhere near that road without having a flashback to what happened. And PTSD, it's extremely real. And I'll tell you from personal experience, some people deal with demons far greater than we can imagine in our normal lives. What caused that man to attempt to try to take my life? I never get to know. All I know is a smiling man with a knife wanted to kill me just because I was walking on a road at night trying to make it home alive. I sometimes see him when I dream. It's odd to describe, but the way he smiled, I'm just stuck on the way he smiled. But then it flashes to the flushed, drained, lifeless, hollow look on his face as he was reduced to the shell of a soul and no longer a vessel of one. Like a cicada when they molt and leave their shell on a tree. I wake up just to have to take 5 to 10 minutes to realize that it's over now and that he's no longer with us and won't be able to harm another human being again. Everyone in this neighborhood that rightfully don't like to come out of their homes at night. I carry the torch as the latest in the bloodline of sheepdogs in my family. I am he who was born into poverty, bathed in the hellfire of growing up in a war zone. I am he who chose to be the protector of humankind, even when not applicable for true service. I hope my peers of my community can rest a little easier knowing someone around here chooses to lose sleep for the sake of the community. I could have ran when confronted and likely got away due to my long legs. However, the training bestowed upon me by my family and those who work alongside them gives me that same call of duty. You're granted access to be part of the few who work alongside the formal protectors of the community to ensure the safety of a cause greater than any personal plight. Protecting the shattered community that raised you, tried to kill you several times, and still you stand in the face of death, even when it smiles in yours. And let death itself know that no matter what form you may take, it is those who strive for the growth of civilization, not the destruction of it, taught the proper training and tactics to be equipped for battling that which sees only themselves in this world, that which itself is a god, and people, their creations, to take as they please with no repercussions for their actions. Those of us who choose to stand up for the collective, the sheepdogs. Thank you for your time.